Okay, for the next part, choosing your class and race. Alrighty, the book will walk you through how to build a character. Later, I'll walk you through how to fully fill out the character sheet. But for the moment, we're just going to go over race, class. Again, race is what your kind of creature you are. Class is what you, and not necessarily what you do. You can be a baker who's become one of these things. You can do more than one thing. You can even multi-class. We'll get to that much, much later. So we're going to hop over to page 17. I'm a dork, and I have all my pages. My book is fully tagged because, and they laughed at me the first game I came this way. They were like, oh, this half the fun's digging around, but they sure didn't laugh when I could find stuff way faster than they could. Anyway, first class is dwarf. There are some classes, subclasses. Dwarfs, obviously, yes, I do mark my book because it's an educational book. It means recreational too, but still. There are different subclasses. There are hill dwarfs, and there are mountain dwarfs. I covered it up with my own hand. Then you get different advantages for playing a dwarf. Dwarvens are much hardier creatures. They are fairly short, usually a little stockier. Very much the dwarfs from the Lord of the Rings. They live a very long time. And this gives you a little bit of information about it. They stand between 4 and 5 feet tall. They're about 150 pounds. Your size is medium. Walking speed 25 feet. Talks about dark vision. You're going to get all this information each one. So I'm not going to read you everything on them. It's just kind of give you an overview. They are resistant to poison, which is important if you're going up against things that deal with a lot of poison. They're also very proficient in different tools, stone cutting. They know a lot about rocks and buildings, things that have been made from rocks. There's two different ones. Each one gives you different benefits. One is mountain dwarfs, obviously the hardier, because you get to be stronger. And the hill dwarfs are more intelligent, so you get to add for that instead. Next category is elf. There's all this cool stuff about being an elf. There are different groups on it too. Your dex score goes up by 2 if you're an elf, so you're far more dexterous. You have an average walking speed's 30, that's normal. You can see better in the dark. Your perception just because you're an elf. There's other things like elves don't sleep. They go into a trance, and so they only take 4 hours of a trance. They get the same benefit from a full night's sleep as other creatures do. Talks about their light races and everything. There's high elves, which are usually the very highfalutin elves. Much like when you go into the Lord of the Rings and they go into the elf land, which I don't remember what it's called. I'm a really bad nerd. But when the king shows up and he's all snooty, he would be a high elf. There's also wood elves. Wood elves are a lot more what you think of when you think of... my brain just completely went blank. Orlando Bloom. Yeah, I told you I'm really bad at nerd sometimes. I've never even read the books. And then there are dark elves, which are drow, which live in the Underdark. Dark skin, white hair. They're elves, but they're like dark elves. They're very emo and stuff. They're generally underground. They have some disadvantages to sunlight and things. You don't have a whole lot of dark elves normally playing, but they can be a lot of fun. Our game that we're playing is in the Underdark, and we run into a lot of drow. Halflings. Halflings are tiny little critters. I say critters, creatures. They're basically in the Lord of the Rings. Originally, they called them hobbits in the D&D manuals. The Tolkien family said, you can't do that. That's our daddy's word. So they changed it to halflings, but basically they're hobbits. They have a dexterous. They get to add 2 to their dexterity scores. They're about 3 feet tall, about 40 pounds, so you're small. Walking speed's 25, which is pretty damn fast if you're 3 feet tall. You get some other benefits from being a halfling. There's 2 different kinds. There's Lightfoot, which are generally your very charismatic, happy-go-lucky elves, like Tiny. Tiny's a Lightfoot elf. It's very perky. Constitution scores goes up if you're playing a stout elf. They're hardier. Humans, there's 2 different ways to do humans. The first original way is you do you get a 1 to all your rolls. For your modifiers, you get to add 1 to everything, each of the 6 categories. But there's also one where you can add, there's a variation on where you can add like 2 to a couple of them or something. We never generally do that. We usually just add the 1 to everything. Your ability scores go up by 1 on everything. I mean, human, it's pretty well what you would expect. I play humans a lot. I think it's partly because it's more simple. I like to put more emphasis on what my character does than their race. Dragonborn are fantastic. Basically, you're like dragon people. I'm not going to go into a lot of this later. At some point, maybe I'll do one on just Dragonborn. Or maybe let Jerry do that, because they're cool. One really cool thing about the manual is it gives you each race, like how they normally interact with other races, stereotypically. If you've never played before, it's really kind of cool to get a little background on it. And just like dragons, each color is a different kind of immunity, and they have different uses for what they can do. Keep in mind, metallic dragonborn are considered to be good dragonborn. Chromatics, which are the black, blue, green, red, and white, tend to be the evil ones. They are to be descended from Tiamat, the god of the 5-headed dragon goddess. You don't always have to stick with that, but it's kind of fun as a DM. You get to kind of have people come in, oh, you're a red dragonborn, you're evil, or you're a silver dragonborn. You must be good, and be a total asshole. Okay. You have a breath weapon that if you, like once prolonged rest, you get to use if like as a reaction. It's kind of fun. Tieflings have a similar thing we'll talk about here in a moment. Gnomes. Gnomes are even tinier than a tiefling. Gathering Place has teensy, tiny little gnome miniatures. They're tiny. They're adorable. Intelligence score goes up by 2. Again, your walking speed's going to be 25 because you're short. You have advantages on all sorts of saving throws. There are forest gnomes, and there are rock gnomes. The forest gnomes tend to generally be a little more happy-go-lucky. Rock gnomes are just, like the stout halflings. They're a little hardier. And I lied. Our Miss Tiny is a forest gnome. She is not a halfling. I don't know what I was thinking. I am so sorry, Amy. Half-elves. Just what you think. They're half-elf, half-human. You get built to your charisma score. You get to add 1 to 2 other things. There's a lot of like mismatch, like half and half things you get for being a half elf. Obviously, you get some of this stuff from being human and some of it from being an elf. So really, it's a fun class to play, especially when you're playing in a game where the world is very much half elf. The elves don't want you, and the humans don't either, or you think you don't. And you play with the chip over your shoulder, even though nobody really has a problem with you at all. Or half-orc is what it sounds like. It's a half-orc. Half-orcs are nice, hardy, sturdy creatures usually. Usually they're known for playing fighters and not necessarily the most intelligent creatures. But that doesn't mean that you have to play a dumb orc, half-orc. You can play a smart half-orc. It's fun. Your strength goes up by 2. You get 1 to your constitution. You're just going to be bigger than everybody else, too. Usually well over 6 feet tall. There's some of your other stuff here. You get, when you hit to 0 hit points per long rest, you can come back to 1. There's all sorts of cool advantages to that. Tieflings are one of our favorites. Jerry's currently playing Tieflings in 2 different games. They are basically considered to be infernal. The rumors over time have been that they're descended from devils and demons and the like, but nobody's really sure. But they can have hooves, they can have tails, they always have horns primarily. Some of them people say they're born as tieflings. I've seen a game where the girl developed her tiefling tendencies when she was going through puberty, which was hilarious because she was very angsty. This is just who I am, Mom. You're just going to have to deal with it. It was great. They get a +1 to intelligence and 2 to charisma. They get some, like where the Dragonborns have where they can spit fire or acid or lightning or whatever. The Tieflings have Hellish Rebuke, which is you can, as a reaction, like cast whatever damage your particular tiefling does. It's great. Okay, I'm going to stop here because it's already 10 minutes. I'm going to go upload this, and we'll do a second video on your classes.